Hi, everyone. Welcome to Monday Morning Musings. Steve here. Hey, we're on about our fourth installment on Ekklesia themes. When you start talking about the church, the New Testament church, etc., it's not very long before the whole issue of leadership comes up. Now, there's two extremes. There's those of us who've been victimized and abused by leadership. I could tell you stories that happened to me and my family that would curl your hair. Sometimes I tell my stories. People think I'm making them up. Listen, I understand leadership abuse. And then there's the other extreme is, hey, the newest convert and the most ignorant person in the room because they've given their heart to Jesus is worthy of being listened to just as much as the old person who's, there's extremes to avoid. And have you ever noticed that in the scriptures, in the pastorals and Paul's letters, where he starts talking about an elder, presbyter, bishop, all interchangeable terms, people have different traditions about that. Those lists do not describe their function as much as their character, their qualifications. And think about this. Those are very minimalistic lists. Don't fornicate. Don't be a drunkard. Don't brawl in the streets. Be kind to your children. How deep is that? The notion that in order to be an elder or a presbyter or a bishop requires that you are some sort of Bible genius simply is not sustainable from the scriptures. Now, the way the scriptures handled it, Protestants don't like it because it implies apostolic continuity. Commit to faith. Because the issue, well then, who does the teaching? Who's qualified to teach? Those to whom the apostolic message had been faithfully committed. And that opens up a can of worms that we don't want to talk about today. Here's the deal. Who is qualified to teach is the wrong question. That comes from Greek philosophy, John Chrysostom, the Protestant reformers, where the lecture becomes the all-defining factor of what it means to gather together as the people of God, to hear a message. We gather together as the people of God to experience a life. And those who manifest a life are worthy to be listened to. I once asked a Greek Orthodox friend of mine, why do they call their priests fathers? Because doesn't the Bible say call no man fathers? I've written on it. I understand the limitations. But here's why. Here's when they say, and by the way, if you haven't read Father Arseny, Arseny, you need to. And if you think you're called to ministry, read that and it'll change your mind. It meant this. We, the people, have observed how you live amongst us and how you've taught us by the way you've related to us. We've watched your life. You live and love us like a father. Therefore, you have proven that you are worthy to be listened to. That doesn't fly in the Western church. You get a hot young gal, that sounds sexist, a hot young up-and-comer in your local church. We send them off to seminary. They get educated. And I'm not anti-education. You know that. You education, then you come back and they're qualified to teach. That's not the way the Eastern church views it. The Eastern church says this: until you've learned to be quiet before God, you are neither equipped or qualified to say anything about God. They understood that the right to teach doesn't come from a job description from the pastorals. Those lists are minimal. So how did the early church, as it developed, how did the early church define what it is like a pastor, an elder, a bishop did? 3 words: creation, expression, and preservation. And it means this: the bishop / pastor elder was responsible for the growth of the church, the incoming of people, creation, the creating, the forming of the assembled people of God. Number 2, expression. That gets into the functions of what is done as the people of God. And number 3, preservation means it was very important to preserve the unity of the people of God. Now, within those very 3 broad categories, that's what an elder does. And the rest of the specifics are as wide open and as diverse as there are people groups and people. God is not as tightly wound as we would like to think he is by when we try to constrain him to some interpretation of a scripture that we think we understand. So the kingdom is much broader, much more colorful, much more diverse than any of us could possibly ever imagine. And I'll see you next time.